Asian stocks mostly fell by the close on Wednesday as developments on Brexit overnight meant the deadline for the UK to leave the EU would likely be delayed again, which creates further uncertainty in the global financial markets. Also, investor sentiment turned sour after the International Monetary Fund released new projections that showed economic growth in Asia could be slower than expected. According to the updated projections, growth in the region could moderate to 5% in 2019 and 5.1% in 2020. That's 0.4% and 0.3% lower than its estimates revealed in the spring. In China, the Shanghai Composite was down 0.43% to 2,941.62. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index declined 0.84%. Australia's S&P ASX 200 closed flat, and Japan's markets reopened after holiday on Tuesday, with the Nikkei 225 rising 0.34%. South Korea's Kospi was down 0.39%, and overall, the MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan was 0.49% lower. Meanwhile, European stocks traded close to flat to slightly higher on Wednesday after Prime Minister Boris Johnson pressed pause on the progression of his Brexit deal. The Pan-European Stock 600 paired early losses to finish just 1.25 higher. Tech stocks dropped over 0.5% on the back of a bleak Texas Instruments revenue forecast. British Parliament voted for Johnson's withdrawal agreement bill but rejected the Prime Minister's plans to get it approved within 3 days. Now, the European leaders are to deliver a verdict on whether to grant an extension to the October 31st deadline. As for earnings, PSA Peugeot Citroën reported rising third-quarter revenues, which rose to 15.58 billion euros from 15.43 billion euros a year earlier. The carmaker expects automotive markets to decline by 1% in Europe. The company's stocks rose over 3% by the end of the session. Meanwhile, the biggest mover was Pandora. Its shares rallied 16% after Carnegie upgraded the jeweler's stock to hold from sell. U.S. stocks rose amid further series of earnings reports. The S&P 500 index closed above 3,000. Apple Inc. stocks rose to a record as Morgan Stanley raised its target for the company's shares. Boeing Co. drove the Dow Jones Industrial Average higher after mapping out a sharp boost to the 737 MAX airplane's output. The troubled giant also reported a drop of more than 50% on a year-over-year basis for the quarter. Meanwhile, Caterpillar Inc. Climbed as investors welcomed its decision to cut production. The Dow rose 0.72%, the S&P 500 climbed 0.28%, and the Nasdaq Composite gained 0.19%. In currencies, the dollar was marginally lower against the European counterparts on Wednesday. The euro-US dollar climbed to the 1.1140 area, where the 100 DMA lies, as the dollar recovery faded despite the rebound in the US yields. The USD index was down 0.10% at 97.43 after hitting a 5-day high at 97.65 earlier in the day. Today, the preliminary October PMI from the Eurozone and the US will be in focus as further signs of slowing activity could spook investors and fuel risk-off trades. In this case, the common currency will be rejected from the current levels down to 1.11 and lower. Meanwhile, the key event will be the European Central Bank meeting. It will be the last time for Mario Draghi, and no change in monetary policy is expected, so the euro-US dollar will likely show a muted reaction. In commodities, Brent jumped aggressively and saw the highest finish in about a month on Wednesday after a U.S. government report showed an unexpected weekly decline in crude supplies for the first time in 6 weeks. U.S. crude supplies fell 1.7 million barrels for the week, which ended on October 18th, versus the increase by 4.7 million barrels expected. As a reminder, the American Petroleum Institute on Tuesday reported a rise of 4.45 million barrels. As such, Brent registered monthly highs just below the $61 figure and remains relatively elevated early on Thursday. And that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and please click subscribe to always be in touch with the latest market news.